You're born in 1850 in the Deep South on a strip of dirt your parents work but will never own. You're not a citizen, not even a person. You're property, listed somewhere between a mule and a barrel of corn. You learn early that silence keeps you alive, and darkness is safer than daylight. But the world shifts like unstable ground. Whispers of war roll through the quarters by the time you're 11. Union armies, freedom, dangerous words. At 14, Union soldiers arrive. Blue coats, real rifles, different eyes. Eyes that look at your father for information, not labor. They ask if you want to fight. You nod before you think. It's the first decision in your life that belongs to you. They hand you a rifle older than your grandmother and train you in muddy fields. White officers bark at you like you're a misbehaving dog, but the uniform on your chest feels like armor made of dignity. You march in lockstep with other formerly enslaved boys. You fight in Florida, South Carolina, Arkansas. Names burned into you like brands. War is fire, mud, and screaming, but every step feels like a step away from chains. You survived the war. That alone is a miracle. You expect freedom to feel like sunlight. Instead, it feels like walking through a swamp full of snakes. You return home in 1865 wearing your uniform proudly. White neighbors eye it like an insult. Some spit, some mutter slurs. Others just stare at you like you committed a crime by surviving. Then the night riders arrive. Masked men on horses dressed in white like ghosts with whiskey breath. They call themselves the Ku Klux Klan. You call them cowards. They terrorize freedmen and white unionists, burning schools, beating teachers, threatening anyone who dares to vote. Some nights you hear screams in the distance. Sometimes you hear nothing at all, which is worse, because silence means success. Your neighbor Samuel becomes one of their targets. One night you hear a commotion, grab your rifle, and burst outside to find hooded men surrounding him. You fire a shot, clean, intentional. They scatter like roaches. Samuel survives, barely. Word spreads. The freedmen have teeth now. You go straight to the Freedmen's Bureau, demanding help. The agent is exhausted and honest. "We need law," he says. "We need force." Then he looks at your uniform. "We need you." You join the state militia, one of the black militias forming across the South. You train in secret barns. You clean rifles by candlelight. You guard schools at night. You escort black voters to polls because merely walking to democracy is now a life-threatening act. The Klan escalates. You escalate back. In 1868, election season turns towns into war zones. Klansmen try to block polling places. You and your militia stand in their way. When armed vigilantes storm a precinct, you form a line, rifles raised. They laugh until you don't blink. Still, they return with reinforcements. Your militia prepares for the worst, until real Union cavalry appears behind you. Federal troops, sabers gleaming in the morning sun. The mob breaks, scattering into the trees, tripping over their own robes. You get your first real taste of victory. By 1871, President Ulysses S. Grant signs the Ku Klux Klan Act. Finally, the federal government stops treating the Klan like a bad rumor and more like a terrorist army. U.S. Marshals flood the South, and you help them hunt the men who butchered families under moonlight. Your biggest raid happens in South Carolina. A scout reports a meeting in an abandoned barn. You ride out with marshals and your militia, creeping until the lantern light glows through slats. Inside, a dozen unmasked men sit around a table, including William Tate, former Confederate, now Grand Cyclops. You've buried neighbors because of him. You storm the barn. Chaos explodes, shots, shouts, dust. When the smoke clears, Tate is on the ground with his hands bound. You breathe easier than you have in years. Hundreds of arrests follow. Trials, convictions. The Klan cracks like rotten wood. For a moment, life feels different. Schools reopen. Freedmen vote without needing an armed escort. You even see black men elected to state legislatures, something you didn't dare dream of. For a heartbeat, the future looks like something you might actually want to live in. But peace never lasts long in your world. By 1874, Northern interest fades. Reconstruction loses support. Federal troops move out. White Democrats, redeemers, take control of state governments and promise law and order. which is code for put black people back in their place. The Klan may be fractured, but other groups replace it. The White League, the Red Shirts. Same hatred, new branding. You feel the temperature drop like winter overnight. Violence rises again. Black leaders are beaten in the streets. Teachers disappear. Freedmen attempting to vote return home bruised and bloodied. It's deja vu with sharper teeth. You don't run, you rebuild. Your militia reorganizes. Older veterans like you train younger men born free but raised in terror. You teach them drills, firing lines, how to sleep light and move silent. You know federal cavalry isn't coming this time. If you want survival, you carve it out with your own hands. In Mississippi, you defend a polling station from red shirts who arrive with rifles and smirks. You form a barricade. Shots are fired. Smoke hangs over the crowd like a choking ghost. But voters still enter. You keep them alive long enough for their voices to matter. Not that all votes get counted. White officials lose boxes all the time. But you fight anyway. A few years later, you're summoned to testify in a federal case. You stand on a witness stand describing masked raids, burned homes, murdered teachers. The courtroom watches you like you're dangerous. You tell the truth anyway. Some of your testimony puts men behind bars. Some walk free. You learn justice can be just as uneven as war. At 40, you bury too many friends. Some died of bullets. Others died because constant fear corrodes the human body like rust. You carry their names like stones in your pocket. At 50, Jim Crow laws rise everywhere. Poll taxes, literacy tests, vagrancy laws designed to funnel black men back into prison labor. It's slavery rebranded, now wrapped in legal language instead of chains. The world you fought for shrinks again, squeezed by ink and power. It cuts deep, but not as deep as giving up would. So you don't. You help protect families traveling north. You escort teachers who risk their lives educating black children. You stand guard at churches that receive death threats. You train boys to shoot straight, even if you hope they never need to. At 70, your eyesight fails, but your memory stays razor sharp. You remember lantern light reflecting off white hoods. You remember the silence after a hard-won victory. Heavy, peaceful, unreal. You die in 1920, a veteran of two wars, the Civil War that freed you and the Shadow War that tried to chain you again. A new Klan rises in the 1920s, bigger and louder, marching in daylight with flags instead of torches. You don't live to see that storm, but the seeds you planted grow in the people who knew you. Your life becomes a story told quietly in back rooms and church basements, a story about a man who faced terror on horseback and didn't bow. You didn't crush the Klan forever, but you broke them once, and breaking them once was enough to show the world they can be broken. Your story ends, the fight doesn't.